Hey guys, so this condensed Facebook Live is all about improving your mindset for competing. This is just my personal experience and my personal opinion, but I'm hoping that it will help you as much as it helped me. So first of all, I'm going to talk about long-term skills that I developed, and these are things that I continuously had to do even if I didn't have a competition on the horizon. It's something that I kept chipping away at. Goal setting. Something that I found so helpful in life generally, not just in my competing. So I set goals day to day, weekly, monthly, yearly, 5 years, and it's helped me so much to get to where I want to be. Someone once told me if you didn't have goals, it's like trying to get to a destination without knowing actually where you want to go. So this is how I think about things in life. If I'm not 100% sure about where I want to go, then it's going to be a lot harder to get there. Let's talk about setting goals for competing. So I've set goals that are my highest ones. So these are kind of the dreams, the things that I want to get to eventually. These are very, very high, but I've really chosen them so that I have to grow as a person and a rider to get there. If I'd set my goals too low, then I knew that I wouldn't be reaching my full potential and I would be disappointed. And then I've set smaller goals that are kind of like my ladder to the big goals. The reason these are so important are that if you just try and go from where you are now to a huge goal, then you're going to get lost along the way a little bit. The small goals keep you focused and let you monitor your progress as you go so that you can really see that you are starting to chip away to get closer to that big goal. Of course, when it comes to dressage, you're not the only one in this team, so you do have to be careful with your goals that maybe the horse can't quite reach where you want to go, or it's going to take a little bit longer for them to strengthen up, so you really do have to keep that in mind. Next up is commitment, and you really do have to be consistent with this, especially when it comes to improving yourself for competing. For example, if you're not a very good test rider and you only ever practice your tests when you go out competing, you're going to really struggle to see an improvement. If you practice your tests every day at home, every week, then you are going to see a lot more results. You have to be committed to your mindset. For example, I used to be a very negative person. For me to become a positive person, I had to work on it every single day. It was kind of like training a muscle. The more I used it, the better it got. Motivation. I've had a few people ask me how I stay so motivated, not just in competing, but everything in life. And what I always say to them is that I have a very strong why. So why do I do this? Why do I compete? Why do I go to the gym? Why do I do everything I do in life? The reason this is important, if you have a strong why, then in tough times you can turn to this. You can go, right, this is why I need to do it, and I'm going to go for it. Another thing that's really helpful for motivation is being around positive influences. So you want to surround yourself with really positive people, successful people, people that have got the mindset that you want to get. So these are things like your coach, that's really important, your friends, also things that you read, people you follow on social media, it all has an effect. And lastly, I want to talk about attitude. Attitude is a choice. If you're a negative person, you can change this around. If you have no self-belief, you can change this around. You can learn from your successes, but more importantly, you have to learn from your failures. If you can change a bad situation around and say, well, how can I grow from this? You're going to get so much out of it. Another thing as well with attitude is learning to be happy with excellence and not always searching for perfection. There is no such thing as perfection. We are all human and no one is perfect. Something that I found personally really useful for me is I had different hobbies, different outlets and different focuses. So if my competing wasn't going perfectly, I have other areas in my life where I can push the positivity and it uplifts me for that. Also, it taught me a lot about my competing and myself. So I really changed myself as a person, and as a competitor I improved. So this moves me into the short-term skills. These are things that I prep myself for competitions. So maybe 2 weeks, a week, the day before a show, I do all these things. First up is visualization, and I know I've spoken a lot about this, but because it was such a game changer for me, I really like to tell people about it. So how I used visualization is I used to be very negative, and before a show I would probably go over and over in my head about what's going to go wrong, it's going to not feel great, this is going to happen, that might happen. But what I now do is I run through the test so it's foot perfect, so that when I go in there I feel like I've already done it foot perfect. This is a great way as well if you feel that you don't have enough time to run through your tests, say that you're working late or you just haven't had enough time to do it. If you just run through it off the horse, then it will really make the difference when you get on the horse. Also, visualization is a great one for remembering your tests. I know I have a few people ask me, how do you remember it? And visualization is the way forward. So I really feel like I have gone through the test a million times already. Next up is self-talk. Now, I've had a few people tell me that they feel a little bit awkward either talking to themselves in the mirror or talking out loud, but the reason it's good to do it out loud and not in your head is because it drowns out those negative little voices that can sometimes take over. There are a few ways you can do self-talk. One of my favourites is voice notes on my iPhone. I can listen back to it before a competition, and maybe if I'm having a really positive day, I'm going to record that down so that I can then be my own motivational coach when I'm not feeling so great. Another really good one is talking to a mirror. That's very powerful, and also you can write it down again so you can just read through it before you compete and really get yourself in the right place. Things to watch out for. Now, the reason I'm bringing these up are because these are 3 of the things that I used to constantly do before shows, and I know from talking to people that they also struggle with it, so I just want to explain them. Setting the bar unrealistically high. So I used to, before a show, panic 2 weeks before and be like, well, it's just not good enough, it's not going to win, it's not going to happen, I'm not going to get there, I might not qualify, and then go into a blind panic and then start trying to improve things way quicker than the horse could have done, way quicker than I could have done, and I just got into a mess. So you really do, and this is where the goal setting comes in, have to keep chipping away slowly even before a competition. Another thing as well I used to panic about is getting to the show and feeling that I wasn't as good as everyone else and I shouldn't be there. Something that I had to remind myself, and this is how I got out of it, is that everyone's on their own journey, everyone has had different circumstances, and we're all on our own little path. So don't worry about what everyone else is doing, just stick to you. Now let's talk about the skills whilst performing. Let's talk about dealing with your nerves, because they're going to be there, so we may as well deal with them. I always think about embracing my nerves now, so I don't try and push them out, I don't try and hide them, I just deal with them. If I get those butterflies in my stomach, I always think about it being excitement, not nerves. Whereas I used to think that it was a very negative thing, I now use it as a positive feeling and really use it to drive me forward. Another way that I found to deal with my nerves is tackling it head on. I always say to myself, do your worst then. Get really nervous, what's the worst that's going to happen? And then I find that that fuel that I used to give my nerves has gone. Another thing as well that I always tell myself is, what is the worst that's going to happen? As much as I want to win and be successful, it is not a life and death situation if I don't get a good mark. Dealing with your emotions. If you care about something, there are going to be strong emotions in it, and it's something that you have to learn to deal with. You have to use these emotions in a useful way. For example, I used to get really upset if I didn't do well in a test, and that emotion used to drag me down. But now what I do is I use that emotion to be the fuel for my fire to grow and push myself forwards. Concentration. Let's talk about some really useful things that I have found that help me in the warm-up to concentrate. I have set exercises that I do in the warm-up, and I just keep repeating them through until the horse feels like they're a lot more with me. Not only does this help the horse, but it really helps me focus and stay concentrated. Now let's talk about regaining focus in the test. For example, if you go wrong or you didn't do a very good movement, you have to learn to not let it consume you. A really useful thing that I found is that I take each movement as it comes. So I go, okay, that movement was a mark out of 10, don't worry about it, that's one movement, it's not going to affect the whole test, I really have to crack on and make sure that I can gain the marks back. And lastly, I want to talk about playing in the here and now. So it's not getting to a show and going, well, at this venue it went wrong last time, or last time I went out it didn't go very well. You really have to focus on what's happening at the current time and not think about the negative past situations. And that concludes the video about how I changed my mindset around for competing. If you found this video useful, please do share it and tag people in it so we can spread the word. And if you have any questions, comment and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I will see you for the next one.